Hello everybody and welcome to Board Game Inquisition, where we're here to offer you insight and information about your board games. So once a month we get a little bit less formal, and I love sitting down and having a chat and talking about the changes that have been made to my board game collection. And as always, I invite you guys to play along at home. I love hearing you talk about topics such as, the new games you've acquired, maybe games you traded for, games that just, really didn't hit that sweet spot that you just weren't a fan of, and of course, what games you're looking forward to next. Because I think it's really important to take stock of the things you own. I think you can appreciate them more, and I also think you'll have more fun with your collection if it's something you're really excited to play. Okay, so first thing to note, so this is now the end of January. Thank God, January has lasted forever. And you may have noticed I did not do a monthly roundup in December. In fact, I made no videos in December. It was probably a wise move on my part, but thank you for sticking around and being here up until the point where I got back. Now, the fact I missed a month meant that I had a lot of board games to talk about that you guys hadn't heard from since like November. So I put up a poll on Twitter and on Facebook last night, and go all 7 of you who voted and decided that you wanted the bumper edition instead of the single month thing. Because when I started writing all of this out, on the one hand I got embarrassed because there's a lot of games here, and on the other hand I felt like I was being really, I was flaunting this or showing it off. And I really don't want people to think that that's what this roundup is about or what my channel is about. I don't care how many board games you have. I also don't particularly care how many board games I have. Just people have different circumstances, and I'm far more interested in sharing things than being like, ooh, look what I got, ooh, look what I got. I'm not of that mentality, and I really hope it doesn't come across that way. In particular in these roundup videos, people must be like, oh my god, there's so many games. But I'm fortunate in the fact that my husband has a good job. Board gaming is our hobby. The only hobby we have. We don't go out, we don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't have children. I'm unwell and don't work, but I also have very little expenses. So all of our discretionary money is, board games. And we're pretty happy about that. But it's when it comes to these kind of roundups and talking to people, I feel kind of bad that we have so much. And someone on Twitter said something very wise to me. I believe this is Sean of St. 12 Games. He goes, you're a board game reviewer. You're supposed to talk about lots of board games. And I think that reassures me a little bit. So in my capacity as a reviewer, I'm going to go through everything, all the new games between basically all of December and all of January, which includes obviously Christmas and including my birthday, so there's a lot of games. And I'm going to try and do this as quickly and as succinctly as possible, so we're not here till the end of time. If anybody remembers watching the Animaniacs, and there's an episode where they're naming all of the countries in the world, and he's just rhyming them off one to the other. If I could do that, that's how I would do these board games. So they're going to get kind of short and dirty reviews. And then we'll talk more about games I really enjoyed playing and things like that in a little bit. So hold on to your hats, folks, and let's begin. Right. So these aren't actually in any order. Normally I do them in the order we've acquired them. Yeah, this is just a terrible lie, because there was quite a few and I had to go back a whole month, so they're not exact. So the first game that came up on the list is Orbis. So Orbis is basically like a colour connecting tile laying game where you build a pyramid. I wasn't sold on it. Not shut up and sit down. My pardons, no pun included, did a review of it, and I've come to really enjoy the reviews. I love their honesty. They're one of the few channels where I feel like they're happy to point out negatives as well as positives, and they weren't a huge fan of Orbis, and I was like, I don't know. My husband, however, is kind of obsessed with building pyramids. He loves the game Viceroy, so he bought this, without my consent, and sure enough it was pretty crap. At least it was for us anyway. We didn't enjoy it. It felt very counterintuitive, and the planning ahead part kind of wasn't really fun. I don't know, and this should be something that appeals to us, but just felt really, really flat. So that's Orbis. Okay, second on the list, The Voyages of Marco Polo. Hurrah! So this one had been on my wish list for quite some time. The honest truth was we didn't really need another dice game, but there always seems to be more. So I really enjoyed this. We haven't played too much of it yet. We got at least one game down to see, you know, what it was all about. There were a lot of games at Christmas. And it's really exciting. I like the fact that there are multiple ways to use your dice, that you can go around the map and get to certain locations. And I definitely want to play more of it, so definitely enjoyed Voyages of Marco Polo. Okay, and of course that goes with it is Orleans. Orleans is a fantastic bag builder. I'm trying to think what other section you could put it under. I guess it's kind of like collecting sets of things. But I really enjoyed this one, and it was one I wasn't entirely certain about either, but I heard so many good things, and we definitely really enjoyed Orleans, and yet again want to play more of that. If you have any of these at home and you particularly enjoy them, I'd love to hear from you. You can also tell me how to win. That would be really fantastic. I love some tips and tricks. Next up is Acro-Theory, the 2-player tile laying game, which is pretty much like an area control. So like your goals are to control a certain amount of areas on the board, but it's done in terms of north, south, east and west. This game had me fooled. I thought it was going to be some kind of light, you know, Carcassonne type game with ships. It's not. It's actually pretty tactical. It takes like 40 to 45 minutes to play. It's a much more solid game than I gave it credit for. Albeit a really good one. I have to say I really enjoyed Acro-Theory. Okay, so then next, so this comes into kind of the Christmas games. So the first thing my husband got as a present is Epic, the card game. So as people who used to play card games a lot and have been through a variety of card games, it was nice to have a new one come into the house. We love Star Realms, don't get us wrong, but we've kind of played it to death, especially when you can play it on the app on your phone. So trying something new like Epic was kind of fun. It's hilarious. How it works is that every card that you want to play costs 1 gold, and you only have 1 gold per turn. So you have a gold on your turn and a gold on your opponent's turn. So instantly you don't have to make as many decisions as you might in other card games. It's like I can play one thing. And the best part, everything you play with is amazing. You don't need to build decks or anything. In fact, we have actively chosen not to build constructed decks. You literally just pick up a pile of 30 cards and off you go and play. It's nice and quick. It's really fun. And we like the fact that it's a little bit random because we haven't constructed decks. Because all of the cards are so good, we thought if you put them all in one deck, I think it would lose the kind of the fun of going, ooh, you know, what's this? And it's amazing. And so we've played a lot of that. So that was a real surprise for me. It's been a while since we've had a card game to play, and it's lovely and quick to just pull out and play whenever you feel like. I'm going to pause for a moment and apologise for the shine on my glasses from my beautiful light in here. Normally I film these reviews without all the big setups and all the hoo-ha, the lights and things like that, because I want it to be more casual. But it's really dark out today, so I have to leave the main light on, and we get that. So I'm sorry, I hate it. It drives me mad. Maybe you guys don't notice it, but I can't unsee it. Okay, back to games. So next on the list is Gizmos. I think we've ended up with Gizmos because we wanted Potion Explosion and couldn't find it. So Gizmos is a game about building the best gizmo, and you do this with these beautiful beads that come out of the dispenser, and it's basically a tableau builder where one thing cascades into another. So you build an entire engine. It's really fun to play. It's lovely and light. All the components are pretty great, and my husband is just amazing at this game. I would love to play more Gizmos, just not with him. He just sees all these connections, you know. You can imagine it being like, I don't know, seeing all the symbols floating around his head as he puts it all together. But I still really enjoy Gizmos. I think it's a super fun game and not too complicated. And also it looks really good on the table. You know, all those games with those kind of beautiful bead dispensers look great, don't they? And I think there's something cool and tactile about having a little collection of coloured balls. Okay, so what comes next after Gizmos? Okay, so Legends of Andor. This is one we bought for kind of our trading group. It was really cheap because there's a rip in the corner in the box, but we didn't care. And it's the game that's made me decide that we probably should never have any more co-op games. Now, to be fair, we did the first couple of introductory scenarios and it was easy. like really easy. But I don't think that's the game's fault. I think this is our fault. As a team, myself and Brian have murdered our way through most co-op games that people think are difficult. And I'm not saying that to brag, it's just a statement of fact. I don't know what it is about the way his mind works and the way we work together, but like things that should be hard aren't. And that includes games like Spirit Island. Unicornus Nights in particular was one we couldn't wrap our head around. We thought we were playing the game wrong because we could never lose. And I wanted to try Legend of Andor because I liked the idea of kind of a role-playing board game, you know, where you had something to do. I thought, you know, that sounds good. I'd like to give it another try or two before I completely dismiss it, because I've been told that it gets more difficult the further in you go. But as it stands right now, I'm just like, I think that's it for co-op games. Okay, next is Tides of Time. This Brian Leahy very kindly gave me for my birthday. And it's a very small 2-player game, and what it is it's a drafting game. You start with a series of cards, and each card has a symbol on it and will have like a victory condition on it. So, you know, you get 3 points for each crown you have in your set after you draft your cards, you know, that kind of thing. So my husband calls it a memory game. I don't know, maybe it is a bit of a memory game, but I just think it's about putting things together in the right order, and I love it. I have great fun with it. It's really, really quick. It's 2-player only, and I can win, which is nice. My husband hates the damn thing. But, you know, I'm still forcing him to play it because I really, really like it. And at least it's quick. So yeah, I was really impressed with what came in that box, tiny little box. So that's Tides of Time. Okay, this was the big Christmas surprise. You might notice it sitting on my top shoulder. Ooh. And and this is Drop Mix. Okay, so I heard about Drop Mix maybe a year ago, and I'm not sure where I heard about it. This is the weird bit. I knew it existed and I thought it sounded like so much fun, and then I looked it up online, and the price of Drop Mix, I'll explain what it is in a minute. The price of Drop Mix was about like $80 or £80. So it was insane. It was completely out of my league. And what Drop Mix is a card game that you play on an electronic board, and it plays pieces of music in each of its sections, and so it combines them together then like you are in fact mixing tracks and mixing music. I always thought it was super cool, and my husband surprised me with it for Christmas. Now, you'll be glad to know he did not in fact pay full price. For some reason it went really cheap on Amazon over Christmas for like 25 quid or something, and he bought some expansion packs with it to play with. I think it's so much fun. I think it is a great party game. I'm terrible at it. The quality of the cards in it are diabolical. I had to sleeve them within the first play because some of them were already starting to tear. It's got a solo mode, like a puzzle mode, which is nice. There's a party mode which you can play with your friends. There's a versus mode. The batteries seem to be lasting forever. The board itself is really cool. I'm a little bit disappointed at how much to get extra cards costs. Because I'd really love to have some rock music, because I just got random music, you know, whatever was on sale. But I do think it's really fun, especially for a party. And so yeah, I was really impressed with Drop Mix, and super elated that my husband remembers at one point a long time ago that I mentioned how much I would love to try Drop Mix. So wasn't that lovely? Yeah, so okay, so Drop Mix. Next on the agenda, this is the other Christmas gift from my husband to me, and this arrived for Christmas night, and that's Nyctophobia. For those of you who don't know, Nyctophobia is the game where most of the players are blind, and a group of you are trying to escape from one player who's like a murderer or something like that, depending on what edition you play with. And you put on these glasses that mean that you can't see, and you work your way around a board, and the board is 3D, so you have to feel your way around to try and find your way to the escape car. So I got to play this on Christmas night because you need at least 3 players, right? So it's kind of the reason I hadn't bought it before. I don't really have 3 people around. I was dying to give it a go, and I think what's really important about it is the person who plays the murderer, whoever, the person who doesn't have their glasses on, really has to be into it. And fortunately, we had a player who was really into it. He was really creepy as we were all sitting there in the dark, because they take your hand as well and place it on the board so you know where you are. And it was just kind of, we screwed up a rule, so we died repeatedly because we were idiots. In case anybody hasn't noticed, we screw up rules a lot. Do you do that too? Do you ever find you've been playing something wrong for ages? My most recent video, the Wibble video, I made a big error in it, and I didn't even know until I posted it, and now I feel terrible about it. We only recently learned that when you do combat inside, you can put in a number of combat cards equal to the workers you actually have in the slot. We thought you could only ever put in one. I'm starting to question our capacity at reading rules and playing games. I hope that happens to other people too. I hear it does, okay, to make me feel better, but isn't it horrible when you find out you've been playing something incorrectly? But overall, Nyctophobia is definitely an event game, a really unusual one, and I think with the right group, super fun and exciting. I love seeing innovation in board games. I love trying something new. Nyctophobia is definitely all of that. Okay, next. Oh yes, woo! So this Kickstarter arrived. Hey! As you may or may not have noticed, I pretty much never back anything on Kickstarter. I don't know what it is. On the one hand, I want to back things on Kickstarter because I like the idea of future games coming in the post when I hadn't anticipated them. On the other hand, I'm like, my money is gone and the game isn't here. I'd kind of rather have it now. So Kickstarter is a weird one for us. We don't often back things, but there's one thing we did back last year, and that was Assembly. You may remember, those of you who've been here a really long time, it was one of my first Kickstarter previews. And it was one of the first games that when we played it, I was like, we really need to own this. It is a 2-player or 1-player adventure in which you're trying to escape from a spaceship, and you're trying to lock all the bays in place before the ship moves everything around. It's a really great little game. It's super clever, and it's small and quick, and I think a lot of people could really enjoy Assembly. So definitely, if you haven't checked it out, you should. They're actually for sale on Amazon and stuff now. I'm like, oh, look at them go. I'm so proud for Ren Games. I think they did such a good job with Assembly. Alright, next up, my friend, Photosynthesis. Okay, so Photosynthesis came of a day off of Christmas when we went for a trip to the Happy Go Lucky board gaming shop, which is in Clonakilty. I love going to our local stores and spending money there when we can. I love being able to support local businesses, especially ones that are supporting a hobby I really enjoy. I wish Happy Go Lucky was closer. It takes us an hour to get there, which is probably nothing for Americans. You guys drive everywhere all the time. But it's a long spin for us, so while we were there, of course, we bought a board game, and this one is Photosynthesis. And this is the game of growing and killing your trees for victory points. Photosynthesis is a beautiful game. You do these cardboard cutouts, 3D trees, and as the game progresses, obviously you build trees, and the trick is to get as much sunlight as possible without being in the shade of other trees, making it rather cutthroat. Obviously this depends how you play it, but mostly, yeah, it's a bit cutthroat. But it is a really kind of light but thoughtful game that has really interesting decisions. So we've quite a soft spot for Photosynthesis. We played it some time ago and we'd always meant to pick it up, so we finally did. Okay, Photosynthesis. Okay, next. Okay, this was a Christmas present for me. My sister-in-law Denise got me a copy of Targi. Woo! So, you know, there's been a reprint of Targi, there's been more talk about it, and I'll be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about Targi. I knew people liked it, I knew it was a 2-player game, and I knew it was kind of like a worker placement thing. And basically it is just that you're collecting things from the board, but you choose your actions in a particular order to get the maximum benefit out of them. I didn't mind it, it was good. It's quite long, it's another like 40 to 45 minute game. It's not the most appealing on the table. That's the big problem I have with it, actually, because I think it's a very good game, but when I think about taking it out, I'm just like, oh, you know, Targi, it'll just be some cards on the table. That really shouldn't diminish gameplay, but you know, when you have options, you kind of want something that looks kind of nice. But Targi is still a pretty great game. Hopefully we'll give it another go in a little while. But we've got to play it at least over Christmas. You know, my continued rule of we have to play everything once it's arrived. Okay, so then I guess, okay, we'll have a small interlude about Christmas, because this is where the change in games comes around. So over Christmas, Christmas is just miserable for me. There's no way around it. I try really hard, it doesn't happen. And we had this great plan for over Christmas while my husband was off. We're going to play loads of board games, and we made a list, and they were going to be all the ones we wanted to play again. And of course they're all these big, heavy games, because they're the ones you don't have time to get to the table on a weeknight, right? You have to kind of set aside a couple of hours and often, to remember how to play them and then actually play them. And I was just too sick to manage any of it. My head just couldn't do anything. And I won't lie, I felt like less of a gamer because I couldn't play these games that I wanted to play. And I felt terrible about it. And I'm sure other people feel that sometimes too. That, well, unless you're playing, X, Y, or Z, you're not really gaming. And it's a really stupid approach and a really idiotic attitude to have. And it took me a while to realise that the games we have in our collection, and something actually someone else pointed out to me, or said, oh, you like really heavy Euros, someone said in the comment. And I'd never thought of myself like that. I actually just thought I liked games. I didn't differentiate between one or the other. But when it came to the fact that my brain wasn't functioning so well and I wanted to play something, we didn't really have a whole ton of options, to be honest. So I decided to try and acquire some lighter games to see, how they would feel. And to be fair, I felt like I was diminishing myself a little bit. Why would I, play Azul when I could play, Kanban or something like that? And it's weird now that I say it out loud that I felt that way about it, but I did. And so the next couple of games, I said I'm going to go for some smaller games, because smaller games aren't bad compared to bigger ones. They're just different games, and games are games, and it shouldn't matter which ones you have. As long as you're playing them, you're still a gamer, right? And it took me a while to wrap my head around that. I have a lot of terrible preconceived notions about the type of person I am or the type of things I do. And this one was really hard for me to kind of deal with. So, on our quest for smaller games, the first one that came in is the Tea Dragon Society. That's from Renegade Games. And it's adorable. It's got the cutest art in the world. You're tiny dragons having a party, and what you want to do is you want to have these great experiences with your dragons. It's basically what the game's about. Essentially, it's kind of like a drafting game. You build up your deck so you can buy better things to do with your dragon up until the point where the game ends. Overall, I'm really disappointed with the production values of this game. All of my cards arrived curled up. There was 3 misprints in my cards. I've been in touch with the studio about it, and they said they're sending replacements whenever they do a print run. But overall, I felt the game just fell really flat. It didn't do anything new or interesting. And sure, it's gorgeous. That's great, but that can only get a game so far. I wish that it had just a little twist to it, because yeah, there's lots of games with similar themes. There's lots of drafting games, but each one will do one thing that makes it them, right? And it really just didn't seem to make an effort to try and stand out, thinking, I suppose, just that the artwork was enough to carry it on its own. So yeah, a little disappointed by that. Now, the next game that came, this is really funny. You can all laugh at me later. Aeons ago, when we've always played board games, but when Carcassonne actually came out, we owned a copy of Carcassonne, and it was time when everybody was playing it. And both myself and my husband had 2 big issues with Carcassonne. He hated the fact that cloisters were so easy to get points, right? That it was just, you put a guy down and it gets surrounded to get points. And I disliked the way farmers worked, despite being really good at laying down at farmers, because they always seem to get such ridiculous points if you can connect it up. So we did a board game clear out a couple of years ago, and we sold on a ton of our games, including Carcassonne, and we never missed it. Didn't miss it at all. And then about last November, I was like, God, I'd really love to play Carcassonne. And my husband was like, no, you're wrong. I remember all the problems we had with Carcassonne. And I'm like, I know, but I just want a game where I lay tiles and connect roads. Because you see, part of me thought Akrotiri was going to fill that void. It did not. Akrotiri was just so many things to think about. I just wanted something really basic. So finally we caved and we got Carcassonne for the second time. And the artwork is not what I remember. I do not like the new artwork. I think it's really bland. But Carcassonne is still Carcassonne. You can still lay farmers down in fields and you can still put men in monasteries. We can't do anything about that. However, I'm hopeful that if we got an expansion or something like that, that it might kind of alleviate some of these problems. So people more familiar with Carcassonne than me, please let me know if you can recommend any good expansions that aren't the castle, because I know how much that costs and how rare that is. But I have been enjoying Carcassonne, just much to my husband's chagrin. But I think it's funny that for some reason my brain went, I just want to play Carcassonne and connect roads. I think that's just how sick I was. Okay, so that I think is pretty much most of December. This is where January kicks in, I think. Because the first game we bought this year for January was one we've had our eye on for a while, that was on sale in an Irish board game shop, meaning it arrived the day after I ordered it. Oh, that was magical, and it was super cheap. So we finally picked up Yamatai. Yay! As some of you may know, Yamatai is that beautiful game where you put ships across the board and claim islands. I had always thought it would be a little bit like Five Tribes, because it looks very like Five Tribes and there are kind of gins like Five Tribes. Yeah, it's not like Five Tribes, people. We've only played it the once and I want to play it again because I think I approached it incorrectly, because you build chains of boats across the board so that you can get to the islands and, you know, build houses and that on them for points, but you have to connect the chains in colours. So you have to start a chain by connecting it with the previous colour. And I'm so used to having a colour that's mine, I was like, well, these are my boats because I have placed them. But that's not the case, because you can use anybody's boats to get places, because there's a whole chain of them. So I think I need to approach it more of being an opportunist and going, well, these colour boats are out there, I'll just use them, as opposed to thinking I need to build everything myself. So I have much hope for playing more Yamatai. And people are right, it is indeed a very pretty game. But it was good fun. Alright, next up, and it's still going, I'm trying to be fast, I swear, is Warhammer Underworld Shadespire. So we used to play a lot of Warhammer Fantasy, also played some 40k, Wartime, all those kind of war game things. And Shadespire has been out for some time now. It's like a small battle on battle kind of thing. It's only 5 guys through a 5, I don't know, it depends on your faction. It's a small amount of guys versus a small amount of guys, and instead of just beating the snot out of each other, there are objectives and stuff, and the games only take like 30 minutes. So we'd been tempted by this for ages, and we found a really cheap copy for 20 quid, and we were like, why not try this out, because it's cheap. It's not bad. It's very mechanically driven. Most of the Warhammer stuff is kind of, it's got a lot of soul to it. It's got a lot of backstory, you know. It's I don't know, there's a whole lore there. This feels very clinical, and very kind of empty, almost, is what I want to say. But I would like to point out that we have just the 2 factions that are in the starter box. There are other factions released, and you can build your own decks to go with your own guys, so that might take some of that out of it. But that's just my first impression on the first play. I even managed to win, so I think there's a vast improvement in Warhammer when things can be objective based over just, you know, having a slaughter, because it gives you a chance to play things a little differently. Alright, let's keep rolling. Okay, so moving on is Kanban Drivers Edition. Way, another Vitel Lasarda game. Yeah. This one actually came from my husband's brother for Christmas. I have to say, his family did pretty great this year. They all at least asked him what he wanted for Christmas. So we got board games, which is just, you know, which is really nice. I think when people asked, that was lovely. And Kanban was one I managed to play. Once I played some of those lighter little games first. It was like my mind was prepping itself for something better. So finally got to sit down and play Kanban, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. As in, I managed to play 2 games of it in a day together. It is a fantastic game where you are trying to build cars in a factory while also trying to get promoted and meeting certain goals. You know, Sandra is the lady in charge of the place, and she hobbles around, keeps an eye on what you're doing. Now, we've only played with Sandra on the easy mode because we're still kind of getting to grips with how everything works, but I think the only problem I have actually with Kanban is that the rules made it seem far more complicated and difficult to explain than the game actually is. I liked it, like, as in, the game is basically, there's there's a bunch of areas you can go to, and in them you can perform specific tasks so that you can eventually, you know, build a car. That's basically a lot of it. There are boardroom meetings and stuff as well, where, you know, you show off your designs and you try and get more victory points. But for the most part, the game is really straightforward. And we had a lot of fun with it. I have to say, Kanban is an exceptional game. So yeah, Kanban, always good. What's next? Sorry, I keep looking down. I have to check my phone to tell you what the next game is. Finally, okay, so we picked up also Side, The Wind's Gambit. We finally have all this side expansions, apart from the new encounter card things, which we'll have to work into at some time. And we actually got to play with those the other day. I think the airships add very kind of another aspect to how you play Side. You get to have, basically they have two little rules that go with them on each game that's variable. I think the two we played with were pretty crappy because neither of us really moved our airships a whole lot. Although maybe we just didn't think about them enough. The problem I have when I play Side is I just go on autopilot. I'm like, I know I need to do this. And I did the same thing the last time we played it, despite being a different faction in a different location. That did not work as well as I'd hoped. But I love being able to add more to Side, because Side is just such a great game. And everything they've added to it really has actually enhanced it and not bloated it, which I think is really, really sweet. And of course, well, you know, airships. Okay. Next, Terraforming Mars Expansions, which I do believe was Colonies and Prelude. I think they're the two we didn't have. I got them for my husband for Christmas. He loves Terraforming Mars, unsurprisingly. So we had a ginormous game of Terraforming Mars with all the expansions, and it was a little too much. I wanted a chance to appreciate what each faction had to offer individually, you know, before kind of mashing them all together. I get you can do that once you know them all. So next time we're going to try one at a time. So far so good. Like, you know what? Does anything bad really happen with Terraforming Mars other than they call, you know, a particular resource floaters? No, you know you're going to get more of the same good stuff. And it's true. It's just more Terraforming Mars-y goodness. Okay, next up. This came from a suggestion for lighter games to play, and this is The Mind. So The Mind is really popular, like months and months ago. I get to it about now, and I was always dubious about what's the point of The Mind. The Mind is a deck of cards numbered 1 to 100, and you deal them out between you and your opponent, and you can't talk, and you try to play them in numerical order without making a mistake. Yep, sound about right? I'm sure I've forgotten something important. And doesn't sound like a whole lot, does it? It really surprised me. It was a hell of a lot of fun. Myself and my husband are ridiculous. He repeatedly keeps cheating by doing things like saying like this, you know, go ahead, take a go, that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, no, stop cheating. But I think we're getting somewhere with there. We've gotten to level 10. I don't know if that's good or bad. But that's not all the time. But I really enjoyed it. So if you're on the fence about The Mind, is it a game, is it an experience? It's definitely both, because a game has, you know, set of rules in which you have to, you know, function. So there's a set of rules there in which you are obeying. It's also an experience trying to stay within those rules. So I think that the Mind is both. But yeah, super impressed with that. Okay, next. This came actually before Christmas, so yet again my list is not in order, and I think I'd forgotten about it. And this is This War of Mine. Now, This War of Mine is set in the siege of Sarajevo, and it's not a happy game or a happy place. The reason I was interested in it was that somebody once described it like a horror game. And I thought this was a really interesting take on horror, you know, real world, you know, terrible things. And there's been plenty of debate over what defines horror, you know. Does horror have to have some sort of fantastical element, you know, like monsters or werewolves or something? Or does horror count as real life, you know, terrible things happening to people? So the aim of the game is basically to survive. You run out of food, you run out of parts to build things, you start getting cold, you get shot at, there are all kinds of random events, and the game as a whole is phenomenal. I have to say I really enjoyed it. The time it took to play it was a major issue. So it arrived on something like a Thursday. So on Thursday morning I set it up to play solo. You can play it solo. And I took 3 hours or so to get through the first turn. There are roughly 9 turns in the game. So I was like, oh god. So I actually left it set up. Board Game Rants has inspired me to leave games set up on occasion. And I came back to it the second day and I put more time into it. And I still wasn't getting past the second or the third turn. And my husband came home from work and I'm like, sit down here with me. I assumed I was just being slow because I was being procedural, because it is that kind of game. It's like, so at the start of the round you reveal this, you do this, and then you go do this. And I thought I was just taking a long time to do it. So my husband sat down with me and we're like, I'll help me finish this. So that was about what, 7 o'clock at night. But 12:30 we finished. And it was definitely quicker with 2, but the problem, I suppose, with it for us is the length of the game, not the quality. The game itself is brilliant, especially if you can get yourself very immersed in theme. You want to be the kind of person that cares about the people you're using on the board, and that's not really me. And I'm annoyed that this game takes so long, because I really loved it and I would love to play it again, but there's no way I could spend, you know, 7 plus 6 is 13 hours on a game, even if it does have the capacity to save it. So like I said, absolutely excellent game, just really couldn't fit into my style of gaming, and that bugs me. It bugs me a lot, because I think it's so good. So that was this war of mine. Okay, so what's next? Okay, so we're basically getting into what I bought at WarpCon. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end if there's actually time for anything else. So next on the list is Reef. Those of you who know a little bit about Reef's got shiny coloured plastic pieces you stack on top of each other and make shapes with. And yes, you're building a reef. The aim of the game is to match the symbols, or match the cards, so that your colours are lined up the same way they are on your scoring things, and off you go. It's very fun, it's very light. I thought it would be easier than it is. I don't think well in 3 dimensions. I also have a tendency to cordon off all my colours, but I like it, and I love the chunky plastic pieces. I think I've heard people say they didn't like those. I really like them. They're really nice and light, and it's another fun light game, and I'm really focusing more on getting things like that into my collection. So I really enjoyed Reef, and for the same reason, and this is why I picked up Blue Lagoon. So for some time I've been interested in getting Through the Desert from Reiner Knizia, which is the one where you mark off areas in the desert with camels. We all love a good camel. Blue Lagoon is the modern re-implementation of that, where you have these adorable little huts and people, and basically what it is you're trying to get your people onto as many islands as possible, and they have to be connected to each other. So you have these discs which are people, and you flip them along. The interesting thing is the game is split into 2 rounds. So the first round you lay out all your people, and you can also lay out huts, right? And then what happens is everything goes off the board except your huts, and then you can start from there laying out your people in the second round. So there's a good bit of thinking about it. The scoring's pretty basic. The game's very cutthroat. Our friend Noel just put a line down the middle of the board, and I was just like, what are you doing? I couldn't get to the other half of the board, get to more things. I really liked it. It's light, but it's quite tactical, and it's super pretty, you know, so super pretty is always a bonus. So I really enjoyed Blue Lagoon. Was very surprised by how well that one went down. Okay, and then the last thing we bought at WarpCon was the Root Riverfolk expansion. Yay! I've had Root for a good while now. We've only played it twice, but Root to me isn't a game that when we played it I felt like, oh, I'm not interested in this. Root is one I want to dedicate some time to get to know better before I decide if we really love it or not. And to be fair, there are more options in the expansion, and I like that idea. And I do think that if we did want to trade it on, having the expansion with Root wouldn't be a negative. And also it's a good inspiration to finally get around and sit down and spend some time with it. Root for me is the game that's full of possibilities, and I think that's how a lot of people talk about it too. I do think there's a very interesting game in there. I think there is more than just everybody does their thing uniquely, but I think it's one that you have to spend a bit of time with and learn. And normally I don't like that about games. Normally I don't like that you have to play this 6 times before it really clicks or you know what's going on. I think we've got better things to be doing with our lives. But for some reason I quite like Root, and every time I played it I felt I picked up something new. So I think there's room there for growth. Okay, and the final game is probably one of the best. And this is The Quacks of Quedlinburg. We picked this up last Sunday. We played it 4 times since, I think. Man, this is a great game. I think I can't fault it. So Quacks of Quedlinburg is, you are in fact a quack, as in a doctor, a crazy doctor, and you're making potions, and you're trying to make the best potion. And what you do is you have a bag with ingredients in it. There are some ingredients you don't want to have too much in your potion because it'll make them explode. And others you want to get out as many as possible to score you as many points. It's really fun. So it's a bag builder. And obviously there's a huge push your luck mechanism, which normally I hate, but I think is great in this. There are lots of little subtle things about this game that really set it apart and show you that somebody put a lot of care and effort into it. There's a great catch-up mechanism. There's a way that even if you do explode your potions, you don't lose out entirely, you just get half of what you would have gotten. So you either get victory points or money to buy further things. I think that the different colours that go into your bag, they vary each time in what they do. I think they are so brilliant. The event cards are genius. I always love seeing them. They're always fun. There is not a thing about this game that I didn't enjoy. And it's quick and it's fun, and everybody we've shown it to has loved it as well. And I think, God, that's something else. And I wasn't expecting that, I'll be honest. I really wasn't. So if you haven't tried Quacks of Quedlinburg yet, I really think you should. Don't let the name put you off. It really is a very special game. Yeah, totally out there. Okay. Whew. Okay, we made it. I don't know how long this took. It probably took way too long. So we're going to go very fast to the next section, which is trades. Woo! So I actually have managed a whole ton of trades over Christmas and in January. Obviously January people like shifting games. So here's our first trade. So we finally managed to get rid of Heroes of Land, Air and Sea. Yay! I'm sorry, that was a game that just fell so flat first. It was ridiculous, and then we couldn't even get rid of it, so I'm delighted we traded away. I also traded away this War of Mine. I have to say it was with a heavy heart, but I knew we weren't going to play it again, despite the fact I really loved it. And Lords of Vegas. So we've tons of dice games. Lords of Vegas was like, oh, well, yeah, we're fine without that. And in exchange, we're getting a copy of V Commandos. Have you heard of this? V Commandos is a cooperative game where a scenario game where you're trying to kind of stealth your way around a map like a commando. You can guess whose idea this one was or who was interested in this. This is obviously my husband's. But it's quite an expensive game and we were never going to spend that much money on it. But I found a way to trade for it. So I'm not sure how good I think it's going to be. I'll be honest. I've heard good things. I'm not sure if it'll be difficult enough to engage him. But we'll find that out later. But you know when somebody wants something and they're going to keep wanting it unless they eventually get it. So I'm like, right, we'll work on that. But we're also getting Mexica. Woo! So Mexica's been on my list for quite a while. Since the Shut Up and Sit Down video a long time ago about Mexica. So I'm looking forward to trying more of those. And then the second exchange we made. Now, this might be more controversial. We traded away Anachrony and the Exosuit pack and Pulsar 2864. I always have the number wrong. Pulsar. And in exchange we got Merchants and Marauders plus the expansion, so the the pirate game, Dinosaur Island, which is the mini Dinosaur Island, and Downforce, the racing game. So that's the one being on our list for a while. Now, Anachrony, God love Anachrony. Anachrony broke my heart. I think the last time we had these chats, I was so excited about Anachrony. And everybody told me how great that game was, and everything I heard about it said that game's for me, right? Everything. Time traveling robots, worker placement. Sold. And so we got Anachrony to the table the first time, and I felt like we were missing something. You know what I mean? Like there was something obvious we were missing here. I couldn't figure out what was wrong, and I was like, okay, we'll play it again. We'll check the rules. We'll go through everything. And that game didn't click with me. There's a bunch of questions I had that just couldn't be answered. Like I didn't understand the point of going back in time for anything, because it just, you had to pay it back so soon. And the fact that it was worth so little victory points to do it, right? I couldn't understand, why would I bother going back in time when I can just keep building stuff here. The problem with the super projects that come up in the game, as well as they're random, which elements, whatever you might need for them. So you can't roll the dice to get those symbols in advance, or sometimes you would just randomly have the ones they wanted. So they seemed a little bit odd like that. And then the fact when you evacuate at the end of the game, you still get to keep playing. What? And this one really tore me up, I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, I should like this game. This game is me. And I tried so many different ways to play it, to enjoy it. I printed out like help sheets. I did everything. And I don't see what everybody else sees. And it hurt me. And it hurt me to trade it away too. I think that's one of the most difficult trades I've ever had to make. And I don't know why I'm so attached to this idea of Anachrony, or what I thought it was going to be. Or other games I haven't liked that everyone else likes, it doesn't bother me. But Anachrony was something special, and I'm sad that it didn't work. But as I always said to myself, that maybe someday in the future I'll pick it up again and see if something's changed. But I just don't get it, people. I don't get Anachrony at all. Yeah, it was sad. So in a way, I'm glad it's gone, because I don't have to look at it on the shelf and feel sad every time I look at it. This sounds pathetic. It's like I'm losing something really important, but I don't know. I don't think it was that I had so many hopes set on it. I really was expecting something different. Not different. I don't know. I was just expecting to connect with the game. I'm not sure. But anyway, so that was our trades. So there'll be plenty of those to play. Geez, we've had a lot of games to play, as you can probably tell by now. But there's been lots of good games. So so what new games did you acquire this month, or even in last month? What you get over Christmas? I'm very late to be asking that question. Have you had any major successes? Any games that were terribly crap? Or anything that really surprised you? I'm always interested in surprises, because the world needs more surprises. So very quickly, we're getting to games we've been playing. Now this actually matters now, because we've been playing smaller games, meaning I have more actual play counts than I used to, because we used to play, one big game of an evening. Instead, we've been playing lots of little ones. So the most popular game we've been playing this month is the Epic card game, as I talked about before. God, that's great. It's great for just to pick it up and play with your friends, or with your husband or whatever. And it's already ready to go. All of the cards are awesome. I love pulling up a card that goes, it does what? And down it goes. Everything's great. So it's just, there's something very cheery about a game like that, where very few negative things happen, because you're both just doing amazing things and you don't really care who wins or who loses. But it's really excellent card game. Okay, next on that list was Drop Mix. Yeah, Drop Mix has got quite a bit of play by me, because you can play it solo, and it's really fun. I really wish I had more cards. I would love me some more Drop Mix cards. In particular, songs I know. There's very few in there I know, but I think that's really fun, and I think when I get some of my friends around, I think we'd have a great laugh. I do think it's a game that's better with more, despite there being the puzzle kind of solo mode. But I do think it's a really, really fun one. Okay, so after your drop mix comes Gloomhaven. Hey, Gloomhaven makes it back on the list, peoples. And that's mostly due to the fact that, you know, the fantasy football season has ended. So since there's no NFL Red Zone to watch on Sunday nights, Gloomhaven has returned. God, Gloomhaven's great though, isn't it? Oh, we put it back on like an old jacket. It's pretty fantastic. I can't really talk much about Gloomhaven still, right? Because spoilers and all that stuff. But Gloomhaven, awesome game. Keep going, never surrender. Right, and then what comes after Gloomhaven? Actually, Tides of Time, which is we spoke about earlier. The 2-player drafting memory game. Played that a lot just because it's so quick and it's really fun. I don't know why, it triggers something in my brain I really enjoy. I like connecting things together and, you know, drafting like that. It's good fun. And then the last thing is the Quacks of Quedlinburg. Well, you know, I've already waxed lyrical on that. Yeah, that's outstanding. If you have a chance to play that, go for it. Other things I played this month that I don't actually own. I got in a game of Twilight Imperium. A friend of ours got a copy, so we had a Twilight Imperium game. Thank you to the person on Twitter who told me how to win at Twilight Imperium, and I'm going to tell you that exact same secret that I was told, because I sat down to play Twilight Imperium and I posted it on Twitter. I was like, dear Lord, help me, how do I win at Twilight Imperium? Somebody told me this secret: hold the middle. So I was like, right, the middle, you say? Okay, so I was like, fair enough, I'm going to try and get to the middle. So on the first turn or so, I got to the middle, and then I tweeted the back. I was like, right, I've got the middle, I'm awaiting further instructions, what now? And then they're like, just hold the middle. I'm like, okay, I'll hold the middle. So I held the middle and I won. That and my opponents didn't really stop me because they hadn't played before. Technically I'd played before, but I don't want to count that as a real play because I was so sick I don't remember what happened. But yeah, so I won a Twilight Imperium. Yes, thank you internet for helping me out. But that was good. That was good fun to play. Okay, so I think that's all of the games I've been playing. So what have you guys been playing? This is going to sound awfully like, you know, the bit where, what have you bought, you know, did you like it? No, I'm curious to know what's popular in your house and why. What gets to the table the most? Or do you have a game that you think should be, you know, you should be playing more of, but you just haven't managed it yet? Always interested to hear that. Okay, and so finally we'll do this super quick roundup just about the channel in general. I have 2 new review copies here, so you'll be reviews for these soon, which is Dead Men Tell No Tales, which is the pirate game from Minion Games, where you're retrieving treasure from a burning pirate ship. It's a co-op game. Things explode, you have to carry stuff. It's pretty fun actually, I have to say. I quite like it. And as always with Minion Games, the components are pretty damn cool. And second on my agenda is a game called Neon Knights. It's got a more full title, doesn't it? 2086, which is a car racing game, like a 80s style. It reminds me a lot of Formula D, except you have weapons and things that you can use and you reignite them around the board, and it's got a modular track, which is kind of unique for a racing game. But so far so good with that as well, but those are reviews that'll be on the way. So the last thing I want to do, the covering up bit. So I talked about Christmas and bragging. Yeah, see, I had a list. Yeah, so little games are games too. And I don't know why I feel like I have to tell you that, but I felt like I had to tell myself that. So yeah, little games are great. I'm having a lot of fun with them right now, and they're giving my brain enough space that I can deal with the bigger games when I'm ready for it. Your collection, I think, shouldn't be all of, you know, one thing all of the time. At least in my case, I go from X to Y and X again, and I'm not very solid. There's a reason, like, I don't rate my games by numbers, because, you know, I'll give it a 7 today and give it a 6 tomorrow and a 10 the day after that. It just all depends on how I'm feeling, and I think your collection should be able to accommodate you no matter how you're feeling or what kind of mood you're in. So I'm glad that my collection is kind of maturing a little bit, right? Which is all good. And then the last is, so WarpCon. So I went to a con at the weekend. Woo! I don't normally leave houses, but WarpCon is our local con, and you know, it's really embarrassing. I tweeted about it yesterday and I left out the C in con, and I can't undo it. And I did the same on Instagram, so my apologies, WarpCon. It's not really Warp On, it's WarpCon. and it's their local convention. We usually go every year, and we run into a bunch of people we know, and we just brought a bag of board games with us and played a bunch of board games, and we bought some new ones, and it was really, really good. It really tired me out a lot, people, work, you know, all that kind of stuff, but I'm glad I went, because, you know, these things are important once in a while. But yeah, I definitely think people should get out and engage with other gamers when you can. Have you been to any cons lately, or anything you'd really like to go to? Or if you don't go, like, what's holding you back? That's what I want to know. I know what would hold me back. I panic, I get nervous, I need like a plan. But maybe you can accommodate yourself in all sorts of ways that you didn't know, because cons really can be, you know, such a fun thing. The final thing I want to do in this monthly roundup is a shout out actually to Board Game Rants. So as some of you may know, Board Game Rants and I are we internet friends? I'd like to think we're friends. But he does great solo tabletop gaming reviews. I really love his attitude to reviews. He's very honest and upfront, and he's very himself, which I think is super important. And he did an award show, much like I did an award show, and he named me in it. And I was really, really chuffed and cheerful that somebody bothered to do that. And I think he encouraged you, or some of you, to come and subscribe and check out my stuff. So if you've come over from Board Game Rants, welcome. Hello, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you for that. I'm sorry I don't do solo tabletop gaming, but I'll tell you if a game can be played solo. And maybe, you know, you don't play solo all the time. Sometimes you play with other people. Who knows, but I appreciate you coming to visit. I hope you enjoy your stay here. And of course that goes for everybody that's always here. Thanks for watching and putting up with this kind of stuff. You guys voted for this longer video, so now you're stuck with it, and you're stuck with me for another while. So yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Board Game Rants, because that was a really nice thing for him to do that he didn't need to do. And it shows you what kind of person that is, to be able to kind of give strength to others. I think that's such a nice thing. So to Board Game Rants, I salute you. I do my best to watch your playthroughs, even though I don't like playthroughs or play games solo. But I love your style, and keep doing what you're doing. And of course, all of my subscribers, if you're interested in solo tabletop gaming, you should go and check out Board Game Rants. So that's it for this month. I look forward to hearing all your stuff in the comments. Let's have some real chit chat this month, guys, because it's been 2 months. It's totally overdue. And until next time, I'll be here playing games, asking questions, and of course perusing my collection. Take care. Tiddlywinks.